Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another Wednesday night a session of the Sports Crib. A lot of things to talk about today. Between the NBA and all of and the NFL and all of the free agency movements and whatnot, we got a lot of interesting questions to be answered, or at least asked during the program. Hopefully, we'll get some answers. I see Reggie's in the queue. Hopefully, Bill will be in pretty soon. I'm expecting my man from the Daily Dose. Don is in Hawaii on spring break. Israel to Hawaii, world traveler. Gonna have to hit him up for some of those airline points there. But I see Reggie is in the queue. Reggie, how you doing this evening?
Doing good. Glad to be here as usual. Another Wednesday, ready to make it happen, my friend.
All right. Well, let's get right to it. First of all, let's have an acknowledgement of Mr. Felton Spencer in his passing, only 55 years old, from the University of Louisville. Uh, had a 12-year career in the NBA, and was one of those guys that you didn't really see it coming, but once he got his opportunity, he made the most of it. Reggie, I'm sure Felton might have been a little bit before your time. He played 90, I believe, from 90 to 2002. But yeah, he was one of those guys that came out of the University of Louisville when Louisville was one of the powerhouses, and he was actually kind of the forgotten man. He propelled himself into what he was. But let's have a quick 10 seconds to acknowledge Mr. Spencer, and then we'll get on with the show. Uh, I kind of touched on it a little bit last week, and you weren't here. So I want to kind of get now that we've had even more exposure and more stories and going on different podcasts, and now we hear about rehab. What is your take on the John Morant story?
Unfortunate, especially with a player of his stature getting to where he got to. So there's a lot of people who get to this level, and I haven't looked into his life. I didn't know he had a 2-parent household, but I'm not sure how hard his life is. There's people who kind of, it seems like they aspire to a life that's harder than what it is. Like you beat the game from a life perspective, from these guys' perspective, you know, what you're trying to portray. So you're portraying a certain image that people who are actually having to live this image all the time would love to not be a part of. You know, it's interesting to see people try their hardest to portray some of the worst elements of society, and it's. I mean, he's 23, so it's hard for me to like bang on him too hard. Being of his age, I know that when I was 23, the amount of stupid stuff I did was incredible. So I can't really. I live in a glass house, but I do think that he has an opportunity to learn from it. He says he did. Actions speak louder than words, because this isn't the only thing, James. Like if it was only one thing, then maybe we could just say, you know what, this young kid being a knucklehead. But the mall incident, when you count that, the 17 getting into it with a 17-year-old, like stuff like that is just unbecoming of the position that he's in. So I'm just hoping that he's able to change his mind state. And I think that we're gonna have to see actions more than words, because he's definitely saying all the right words up to this point.
Yeah, I think someone might want to slip him a copy of the Maurice Claret story.
Wow.
You know,
Ohio State, right?
Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go out because you're playing football with a bunch of young kids, and I mean, so like I said, maybe someone should, like slip him that life story, or maybe even get him in, you know, contact with Maurice and say, like, hey, this is not how you want to end your career.
Right.
I mean, uh, it was life changing money back then. So you can, when you're making millions of dollars, and I'm talking about triple millions, not
Yeah, 9
double.
digits.
Uh, and speaking of my experience, one of the aspirations of making money, however you made it legal or illegally in the hood, was to get out of the
Get out of
hood,
the hood.
not to bring the
Exactly.
hood with you. But
A lot of people feel, James, that they've left the hood behind. They say stuff like, I will never, but you got to understand, a lot of those guys would leave you behind if you were in the hood. Like that's just the goal. The goal is to leave the hood behind. Maybe you take a couple of friends with you, especially ones that are going to make sure that you aren't putting yourself in this kind of position. I do kind of blame the people that
LeBron
are
is a
around
great
him too.
example. LeBron is a great example of
Yes,
friends that you bring
absolutely.
with you.
The gold standard. The gold standard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be, LeBron-esque with, and picking your friends, but you know, uh, the gun cost less than the taxes that he paid probably when he got the rims on his car.
Easily, right? Easily.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a toy, but hey, anyway, it's just as you said. It just seems to me so. I, I, I would like to say atypical, but when you look at past events, I mean, then it becomes a point where you have to know your surroundings.
Right.
And just because a person that is older than you, that's trying to give you advice, does not always mean that they're trying to take your fun away.
Right.
I mean, hey, how many trips to Cabo is that? Huh? How many trips to Istanbul? I mean, this, but and the thing, there's a couple things that I don't understand. Just going back on background here. Uh, First, he was, I guess, I guess those first 4 games were voluntary.
Yeah, it was 2 at first. Remember, out the gate, it was the Memphis Grizzlies coming in before the NBA. I think trying to get a little bit of ahead of it. They did 2
Right,
at first, and then a
and
couple
then
more.
4,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's 8.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. What kind of rehab is this? Usually, when you go to rehab, you're there for a few months. I mean, uh, uh, I know we're in this era of instant gratification, but
Yes.
what do they do? Do they dry clean you now at rehab? I mean, what's the deal? Uh, he might miss 2 weeks, and I understand, the NBA doesn't want to lose its stars and so
No.
forth and so on. But if that's the case, why do you let them sit? If they're there, they should. It's like a yard sale. If you're in the yard, right?
Right.
you know. But so there are a lot of things that I'm still kind of getting trying to wrap my head around as far as the NBA and the way that this has been handled. But
he
it
checked
is.
himself into the rehab about 4 days ago. 4 or 5. I heard on like Friday or so he's checking himself into a rehab in Florida, and here we are Wednesday, and I guess he's out. I don't.
Well, like I said, and I can tell you for sure, anger management is a process.
Yeah,
It's
man.
not. It's not something that I mean, I've been home from Vietnam for over 50 years, and I still take anger management classes, mainly to resharpen the tools that I have to help me deal with my anger.
For sure.
But you know, like I said, I don't understand with the quickness here, but uh, let's move on. The Bucks are the first team to clinch a playoff berth. What's your thoughts here?
No surprises. I mean, when you look at the top of the East there, whether it's the Bucks, whether it's the Celtics, whether it's even Philly, there's no surprise to who's going to be there, whether they clinch this week, whether they clinch next week, James, whether they clinch the week after that. We've had a pretty good feel on who these teams are going to be for quite some time. And I don't see any of that changing. So I'm not really surprised or anything that they did. Embiid's been on a tear, so that's been nice to watch. But there's no real surprise here that these teams that we felt were going to be there a month or two ago are kind of coming to fruition now.
Yeah. Talking about Embiid's performance in these last 10 games where the 76ers have been 8-2.
Yeah, nice run.
So, do you think that perhaps he's putting Jokic's three-peat in jeopardy now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he's put all of them in jeopardy up to this point. Embiid's pretty much been a two-man race the last few years here. Coming down to this year, I thought that maybe you would add Luka or somebody to that this year, but Luka hasn't really stayed healthy. And I think Kevin Durant was playing on the MVP pace too. He hasn't really been able to stay healthy. So it's the same two-man race that it's been the last 2 to 3 seasons. And it comes at a time when the Nets are on a slide. So the Nets are going the opposite direction. Nets are on a little bit of a losing streak. And the 76ers are on a winning streak. That being said, Embiid, from a points perspective, is killing Jokic statistically. But when you're still averaging a triple-double and you're a center, that's going to be just hard to beat. And it depends on where. I think the final seeding is going to matter, James. Where they end up landing is going to matter. Let's say that one is the 4th, 5th seed and one is the 1 seed. If everything else is the same, I'm going to use that as somewhat of a factor to try to differentiate the two. But I do believe that if you've already won it and you still have the same statistics that you won it for you the last few times, it's going to be hard for Embiid to win it without going on a significant run. And I think at least getting his team up to like maybe the 2nd seed. I think maybe they're the 3rd seed. I think it's kind of like Boston and the Bucks, and I want to say them.
Yeah, the Bucks have already clinched, so it's the Bucks, the Celtics, and the 76ers, right?
Okay, so he's not very far off. I mean, because I think Denver's 1 in the West, I want to say, but I'm not sure they still are. The West is pretty close. Okay, so they're still number 1. If they continue that, I think even from a consistency standpoint, because Denver, as much as I don't really watch Denver Nuggets games like that, they've been consistently great all year. I don't know what metric you would use to not give it to Jokic besides just liking Embiid better, and that's fair if you do.
Yeah, it's not that we have to take turns winning this award, or anything like that. But like you say, as long as Jokic stays up there and he maintains those numbers, I think he's going to have that consideration. I mean, and remember, he is playing in the West.
Yes, very different beast in the East.
Yeah, so for him to maintain that level of play for consistent for these last 3 years, you can't knock him.
It's true.
Yeah. Are the Celtics still the team to beat in the East? I mean, we talk about last year and, how close they came and, supposedly this year is supposed to be their year. And then they go through the coach thing and they have a couple of losing streaks. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm not sure. What's your take on the Celtics?
This kind of mirroring our MVP conversation, right? Like the Celtics have been knocking on the door the last 2 or 3 seasons, and seemingly getting closer every time they knock. So because of that, I would say they are the team to beat, but I'm trying to remember last year if Chris Middleton was out. I think Chris Middleton was out.
Chris Middleton was out
last year,
or at least during the games that he played, he was not 100%.
Okay, so that's a big differentiating factor right there. So if you have Chris Middleton back, how do I not say the Bucks are the team to beat? Both the Bucks have a championship. The Bucks made a championship run the last few years here, the same way that the Celtics made that run, except they weren't able to get the championship. So it's going to be, if Chris Middleton's back, Drew Holiday, all of the horses are healthy. Brook Lopez playing amazing. If all of those guys are healthy on the Bucks, I probably got to give them a nod over the Celtics, even though I love my guy Jaylen Brown. I will have to give them a nod over the Celtics if Middleton and all of them are out there.
I didn't know you were a Celtic fan.
I'm a Jaylen Brown fan because he went to my high school. So,
okay.
so I'm a big Jaylen Brown fan. And you know, I tend to be an Atlanta guy fan. So you went to Alabama, University of Alabama, Atlanta. I'm a fan of yours.
But I was one of those guys last year that absolutely crucified Jason Tatum. And I'm ready. I'm waiting to do it this year because I do not see that killer instinct that I've seen from other champions. Like you mentioned, the Bucks won a championship. You know, you talk about the teams where even the team that beat them.
It was the Warriors last year.
The Warriors last year. You know, I just do not see that killer instinct from Tatum. In fact, to me, it seems the bigger the spotlight, the more he shrinks away. Now, if you just, you know, if it's just basketball, you know, as they say, and we're just playing, you know, regular season, he's a killer. But it seems like he just does not carry that intensity over to the playoffs for me.
I feel like you remember when LeBron had this same issue when he early in his career. Like people had to say like, you know, he's a great player, but I don't think he has that dog in him. Like that's what used to be the knock on LeBron when it was very early in his career.
Right.
Tatum is still early in Tatum's career. I think we're in the first like 5-6 seasons of his career, maybe. And he's already been to conference finals. He's been to a actual finals. I think at any given time, Jason Tatum's got 30 to 50. He can give you almost 50 if he had to. I think the problem is that
Damon Lillard gives me 71, but he's not going to the conference finals.
That's true. That's true. I think Damian Lillard needs a Jaylen Brown. That's what Damian Lillard needs. He needs one of those guys on his team. I see the knock. It's hard because when you see a player as good as Jason Tatum, it's just hard for me to knock him for this specifically, especially given who he's lost to a lot of times. So when they lost to the Warriors, I just felt the Warriors are a better team last year. I didn't think they were going to beat the Warriors. Like the Warriors just a better team, in my opinion, with Jordan Poole coming on last year the way he did.
But there were nights when he disappeared. You know, it's one thing if you put up that effort and lose.
Right.
But there were games. Was it one game you only had 8 points or something like that?
Unacceptable. Like you can't have those kinds of nights. And I feel like some of your better players don't. That's what some separations are, though, right? Between the Kobe's and the Michaels and other world, like they don't have those nights. Those nights don't exist like that for them in those moments. You know, that's a special kind of player.
Yeah, you know, and you know, I'm not saying that. Well, I am saying I just don't see that he has that type of when I need you, like I can depend upon you to put the team on its back,
right,
rather than defer, to some of the players that and I understand if a player's hot, sure you give him the ball, but if I'm paying you $20 million and I'm paying him $1 million, I kind of expect you to put the ball in the basket more than him.
True. Yeah. And I don't think that's unfair, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So I might as well stay here in the East. The Knicks went on a tear not too long ago.
Yeah, see that. That's strange for me to
and,
see.
and I'm not, definitely not jumping on the Nick bandwagon. I'm not a Spike Lee or Stephen A. type guy.
Mhm.
But are the Knicks just good enough to make it interesting in the East when you think of how far the Brooklyn Nets have come down? You know, uh, because we used to talk about the Nets and and know that top, along with the 76ers and the Bucks and you had to mention the Nets because of their roster. Well,
Right.
now you got Ben Simmons and right.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges is their guy right now. He's balling too. He's had some pretty impressive games.
Yeah, but once again, if they would make it to the playoffs, the most you could see is one and done.
For sure.
Whereas, when they had Harden and Kyrie and Kevin Durant, this was supposed to be the next dynasty in the East. But so what's your take on the Knicks? And they're doing a lot of this without Brunson.
I feel like it's a good look for the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks have been the most valuable team for years, and yet this is one of the first times they've been over 40 games, I think in like 10, 15, 20 years, something like some crazy stat like that, and it's unbelievable to see it. But it's I mean, congratulations to the fans for not sucking too horribly. But I think we're kind of talking about the same thing when we talk about them and the Nets, to be honest with you, in a sense of not necessarily in talent, but in the sense of what the expectations are. No matter what the Knicks are doing right now, they're in prove it mode. Like the Knicks are not getting benefited out from me anyway. You're in a mode right now where I just don't know what you are about. Like, are you going? Is this a first round elimination? Is this a second round elimination? Because I don't see them getting to those top three, whether it's Philly, Boston, or Milwaukee. And I'm not betting the farm on the Knicks in a game like that. So I think it's great for them because they don't suck and they're the most popular team in the league. So it's good when the most popular team in the league is not horrible. But look at what we're talking about too. Like that's our conversation. That's setting the table, James. We're setting the table for a team not being horrible.
See, but it is good, to have Spike Lee at least, back in the building, and at least sitting up in the chair.
Yeah, having something to look forward to. Look at the game.
Now, is it time, and out here, I guess you could say I'm kind of more of a Warriors fan than I am of any other team out here. I like Steph. I like Clay.
Nothing like that. I like that team also.
And I like the team dynamics. You have an owner that doesn't care about luxury tax. The only thing he cares about is winning.
Yeah.
And he puts the necessary pieces together in order for him to achieve his goal. But at some times, you might keep somebody a little too long out of loyalty. Now, I'm not, saying in sports as in life, you're going to have disagreements with your teammates and whatnot. But at some time, it becomes a bad look, just like we were talking about Ja Morant earlier.
Yeah.
You have a veteran in this case that seems to have beef with, for all intents, what, a second year, third year player?
In Jordan Poole?
Yeah.
I want to say that he's been on the team 2-3 years, but he came on last year as far as when we would notice who he was last year, which is kind of coming out party, so to speak.
Right, during the playoffs, so. But my point being is, you have one guy, that's, as I said, kind of in earlier. You got one guy that's making $20 million. You got another guy that's making $1 million, if that, because he just got an extension, so he was on a rookie salary, whatever that was.
Mhm.
And you're supposed to be as an elder, it's your responsibility to teach the youngster. Now, believe me, I understand tough love. Been on the end of that
Yeah.
a few times, but when you look at what has happened to this team, especially defensively, because that used to be their bread and butter, their
Right.
defense. And Draymond was a part of that defense, whether being undersized, but always having that pit bull in him.
Yeah, great defensive player.
But do you think that it's time for the Warriors to possibly part ways with Draymond, especially when you signed an extension with this young man? You have said, as a matter of fact, by your actions, that Jordan Poole is the future of your franchise.
True.
So, what's your thoughts on this Draymond situation? I mean, as they say, one rotten apple, and it this seems to be something that has been going on all season.
Yeah, it's rough because when you're dealing with aging stars, and we see this all over sports. Sometimes it's difficult. How do you kindly show them the door? How do you gracefully, I should say, how do you gracefully show an aging star the door, especially one that you might have so much appreciation for what he did for your team because of the kind of Swiss Army knife role that Draymond played on the Warriors. He played a lot of different roles, wore a lot of different hats. I think that just like when we're speaking of the John Morant situation, this situation with Draymond is beneath who he should have been, especially given the age difference, given the tenure difference. It's you were one of the figureheads or one of the heads of the team, and then
you got a few rings, buddy. You know what I'm saying?
And Jordan Poole kind of just coming up. I think that it's a foregone conclusion, James, that this won't stay together forever, and we all know who the first off the boat is going to be. I think Draymond knows who the first off the boat was going to be. We all knew that Draymond, Clay, and Steph isn't going to last forever. But we all knew at the same time, if one of them had to go today, which one it would be. I don't think that's changed, James. I think it's still the same. I think it's still the same now. And it's more pressing than ever because I don't know what his contract situation is past this year. I think he might have been playing on it just like, I'm just going to go out there and play and then just see what happens this year. But I think it's a foregone conclusion that, or let me just say this. If we get to the end of the season and Draymond's not on the team, I don't think anybody's going to pass out. Like, nobody, it's not going to be some super surprise that Draymond's not on the team anymore. But I do think if they keep winning, they win another championship, he might buy himself another year. I don't know. I mean, do you change the team if y'all win another championship? I'm not changing anything. I'm going to let Draymond, he'll play Udonis Haslam role for a second. I'll have him on the end of the bench or something before I let him out of there if we win another championship. If we don't, and it seems like the locker room's splintered to a point where it can't be put back together, then Draymond's going to have to go after the season. Thank you for everything you did for us type situation, and see you later.
Well, who is it? Ilgauskas just broke his wrist.
Who Iguodala?
Iguodala, I'm sorry.
Iguodala?
Yeah,
they just put him back in there like an hour ago. He ain't even been out there long.
I know he's just been out. He just, yeah. Right now, the Lakers are number 11.
Tight in the West, man.
Do they make it?
How many games back are they from? What's the play-in spot? The play-in spot's 9?
9 or 10. I know right now they're in 11. I haven't looked at the latest. Let's see. Let's go into the standings here.
Yeah, because if they're knocking, depending on how many games they have left, I'm not going to count them out. But the problem in the West is you can't really count any of those teams. Those teams are separated by a few games, like 2 or 3 games. You got several teams separated by a small amount of games.
Right now, let's see. Okay, I misspoke. The Lakers are back in number 10.
Okay, there we go, making strides. With
But
AD out there.
so you have let's see. Yeah, the Lakers are in that last spot. They're I want to say they're a half a game. Let's see. They're a game ahead in the win column over Utah.
Okay, and which is funny because Utah is supposed to be a straight rebuild land right there. They're out there competing. It's interesting because I don't.
Well, Utah and the Pelicans had the same record. It's just a matter of the head-to-head matchups, I believe. But
yeah, the Pelicans with no Zion and with Ingram in and out of the lineup, I'm not convinced. With the Pelicans coming to the year, I was very high on them, so I'm not really as convinced with Ingram and in and out of the lineup and Zion being out of the lineup. I don't know if McCollum can pull it off by himself and make any serious run. I'd be scared of the Lakers. Listen, if the Lakers were to somehow squeak in, James, like, you don't think I'd rather play Utah than play LeBron and AD? For sure, I'd rather play one of these other teams than play LeBron and AD in win and go home type situation. But that being said, it's a far jump from them to like the number 1 seed. You know, do you automatically think they're better than Denver or these other teams that they're going to run into?
Well, if they make the play-in tournament, that's who they'll be playing. They'll be playing the number 1 seed, which would be Denver as of now.
So if they do play-in's only 8 seeds, 8, 9, and 10, though, right? Because they would have to actually make the playoffs to get in to play Denver.
Right.
So that's assumed. So we're assuming they get into the play-in, or maybe so. What's the 6th seed, James? Right? Because 6th seed is what escapes the play-in. Like if you, I don't know if they. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Right now, the 6th seed is the Clippers.
The Clippers. Okay. Does it say how many games they're separated from the Lakers?
Let's see. The Clippers are 10 games behind the Nuggets, and the Lakers are 12 games.
It's not too far of a separation. I mean, that's not too far of a separation, especially coming down
between when you get from number 5.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 3 games separation between number 5 and well, actually, it's only 2 games between number 5, which are the Warriors right now. They're both 36 and 33. And the Lakers right now are 34 and 36.
Still slightly under 500, slightly under. Man, if they had LeBron, this would just be so much more of a better chance, in my opinion. Even though AD has been keeping them in the games, and I've been watching the games, been pretty good. AD's been playing great.
But AD is on a minute restrictions and can't play back-to-backs.
That's horrible. I mean, I don't know what to do about that. Like you're done. Yeah, I mean, no AD, no LeBron, get out of here. I mean, no matter where, even if you do scrape into the play-in, if LeBron ain't playing and AD ain't playing, it's over with for the Lakers. I'm giving them only a puncher's chance if they are playing, because I think that championship pedigree and the team that they are, they can definitely make a run. But if you're in prove-it mode, they haven't done anything to have benefited the doubt, or just assume that they're going to make that run.
Let's talk about this Luka and Kyrie situation. Luka's out with a thigh contusion, I believe, or something.
He's been out a few games.
Yeah, and Kyrie has been on and off. They both missed a couple games, but has Luka already become a Batman to Kyrie's? I mean, has Luka become a Robin to Batman? Kyrie, when you look at the number of shots taken in the 4th quarter, Kyrie is almost, if not twice as many shots in the 4th quarter as Luka.
I think that's on brand with Kyrie, from what Kyrie's kind of typically known as. Like, he's known as that closer guy. You know what I mean? So I think that there's an assumption. I don't know how you would feel about it if it was opposite. I think it could be closer. I'll tell you that. I mean, 2 times is pretty significant. I think that the shots could be closer, but it's no surprise though that Kyrie would have a ton of shots in those closing moments, because it's kind of like what his brand is to a certain degree. being that closer guy, being the guy that's able to go out there and get you some points when you need it. That being said, I do think Luka's better. But Kyrie's box office, like it's I think that's just something that you just deal with. I don't know if you're the Mavs, maybe you have this conversation amongst self, maybe, but it's a lot of teams would love to have Kyrie shooting in the fourth.
So is this still Luka's team?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that the problem is with Kyrie, and here's going to be the issue. No matter how good Kyrie plays, James, in any given place he goes to, because he's jumped around so much, it's going to take a lot for a team to be known as Kyrie's team. His opportunities with Boston, in my opinion, he had an opportunity with Boston to make that his team. But with that falling through and then him going to the Nets and that falling through, and now he's on the Mavs, guy's not even 30 yet, right? He's been on like 4 teams. So you can't be a journeyman like that unless you're LeBron. Like LeBron, the difference between LeBron going to teams, and even you can still argue that when he went to Miami, it was still D-Wade's team. The difference with LeBron and going to teams is that LeBron brings that ring with him. He brings that championship, and that's going to make it your team. Kyrie doesn't have the same thing. Tyrese seems to bring a lot of drama with him, the opposite. So I think Tyree's kind of in search of that identity right now. And I don't even think he has an opportunity to do that here in Dallas as long as Luka is there and playing. He would have to go to another team, maybe another superstar joins him another team. Maybe they meet the same way that he did with the Nets and then lead that team to significant postseason success before people start to change the narrative on him of being kind of like a journeyman now at a relatively young age.
Marcus Smart said that his candidate for Defensive Player of the Year went to Bam of the Heat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the NBA's top 3 candidates for Defensive Player of the Year are Brook Lopez from the Bucks, Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Grizzlies, and Evan Mobley from the Cavs. Who's your Defensive Player of the Year?
I've really been paying a lot of attention to this contest. It's interesting, though, because when I look at this list of 3, you got 2 in the East. I'm surprised no Gobert there, given what they gave up to go get Gobert. Like you would think he would at least been third somewhere appearing on this list. He used to be a mainstay on these Defensive Player of the Year lists. So I feel like my takeaway is more so being interesting on who's not on the list. The fact that he's
Joel Embid, didn't Embiid just drop 39 on his ass the other night?
Embiid dropping 30 on everyone, right? Right. When you look at Embiid's averaging 33. So when you average 33, you dropping 30 in theory 40 times. You dropping 30 on 40 different teams.
Yeah, but me and Mr. Scott had a interesting conversation about Mr. Gobert.
I bet
we had, they were much more fun to me when they first came out. When I was trying to get him to tell me how Rudy was worth 10 players, but
I don't think he is. I think that they got fleeced. Danny Ainge fleeced them, man. That's what it looks like to me.
And who said Herschel Walker only happens in the
NFL, right? You could rebuild a franchise. We'll see what happens with Utah. They might rebuild their whole franchise on the back of that. We don't know.
Well, let's play a little game called Checkers or Chess. We're going to talk a little NFL here.
All right.
Okay? All right. The Bears, they got DJ Moore and the kitchen sink, more or less.
Yes.
The Bears got a number 9 and number 61 pick this year. They got a first-round pick next year and a second-round pick in 2025. Would the Bears playing checkers or chess?
I'm going to say chess here for one reason, and it's a reason I had to think about. Because at first, people, depending on if they felt like Justin Fields was the guy or not, they some people felt the Bears should take Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, one of these other kids coming out. I think what the Bears did, you got DJ Moore, so you got him a weapon, and now your receiving core is looking respectable now. Now you're going to get a chance to really figure out if is it Fields or not. Kind of the same way that the Philly got a chance to do that with Jalen last year. So you get a chance to figure that out. You also get 2 picks in next year's draft, James. So here's what happens. Let's say Justin Fields comes out and stinks it up again next year. They're going to either be picking in the top few picks, or they can package that second pick with the pick they're going to have to move up to a more favorable spot if they're close to one of those few spots, and take a kid like Caleb Williams next year. So they're still in a position. It's not like they have a quarterback they're paying a lot of money to. They can still move off of them next year. And you got DJ Moore in the process. Like, I think the DJ Moore puts it over the edge for me because he's a great player. So I think that they're playing chess here, because you might think it's a endorsement of Justin Fields and his abilities, and I do believe that it is a small endorsement, but it's not an endorsement you think, because they can be right back here next year and take a quarterback and put themselves in that position to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think depending upon, that who that pick is, that ninth pick, I think it would seem like they are playing for the long term, like you say.
Yeah, for sure.
They got DJ Moore for the instant gratification, the addition to the wide receiving core.
Yeah,
and they have done a little bit to help keep Jalen upright. So, yeah, I think they are playing chess here. The Chargers, now they managed to keep most of the game together. They restructured the contracts of Bosa and Mack, and they also managed to re-sign Allen as well as Mike Williams.
it's impressive.
But they also gave Eckler permission to discuss trades with other teams. Now, just because he discusses, of course, that that means that they can also match him. But
yeah, for sure.
But what do you think? Are the Chargers playing checkers, or are they playing chess?
This was a little bit harder because I really like Austin Eckler. It's harder. If I'm leaning one way or the other, I'm going to lean towards chess, only because running backs aren't getting paid now. Like, it's not fashionable to pay a running back. You know what I mean? Like, it's becoming less and less. You're not going to see a lot of these Ezekiel Elliott type contracts out here anymore, so it's becoming less and less necessary to pay a running back. But man, if there was any running back you'd pay, it'd be Austin Eckler type running back. If there's anyone that you're going to pay a guy like Austin Eckler, but only because he catches the ball as well as Christian McCaffrey type. You know what I mean? Catches the ball as well as runs it well. But without digging into their contractual structure of the team, it's hard to know who would they have to let go if they were to try to do that. Like, am I going to let Allen or Williams go? I don't think I am, because I really like Justin Herbert. I'm going to try to keep him happy, even though I do think he needs a running game. Isaiah Pacheco has shown, and a lot of these rookie running backs, it's funny because some of these rookie running backs don't know if they're playing so well, they're cheating themselves out of money later in their career. Like, there's no reason to pay you. There's not going to be any reason to pay you outside of a rookie contract, because you've done so well this 3-4 years on your rookie contract. We'll franchise you for a year or two. Now we've had you for 6 years, and we'll go try to see if we can get somebody else in the draft. And these draft picks are coming out and having great years. So it's hard to argue with their logic with letting Eckler talk to other teams.
And the running back is not that 3 yards in a cloud of dust anymore. So
no,
like you said, you speak of his pass catching ability. A running back, has to block and so forth and so on. So yeah, I do like the Chargers, but to me the Chargers are still a bunch of individuals.
Okay, so no team identity there for you yet.
Right, and I've watched them ever since. Even though everybody knows I'm a Steelers fan, of course, but even when I came out here and had a chance to watch them up close, I still never had that sense of team type of unity. Even going back as far as LaDainian Thomas. I mean, they had great individuals, but they never impressed me as a team. Usually teams tend to overachieve. whereas individual players are great individual players on an organization tend to underachieve. At least
which is what I felt they did last year for sure.
uh, like I said, you can go all the way back to they only won one Super Bowl during that period. So I mean, I think they've underachieved for a while, but you know, so I don't know. I think it's kind of checkers with the
Okay.
Chargers, and the reason why I say that is because I don't see where they've made where they've made enough impact in order for them to 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 get ahead of a uh, Buffalo or a Chiefs team. I
Oh,
think
they
those.
definitely have not done that. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I, I I think when you keep the same players, how can you expect different results?
Yeah, that's why a lot of these coaches get fired. So I think the coaches will get fired, but you still got the same guys in there.
Right,
You
right.
know?
Yeah, so let's talk about the Raiders. Now, the Raiders acquire Jimmy G. They 3 years, 72.25 mil, 34 mil guaranteed. They also got Jacoby Myers. They signed him to a 3-year contract, 33 mil, 21 guaranteed. They put the franchise tag on the NFL's leading rusher, uh, Jacoby Jacobs, Josh Jacobs. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Uh, but does that $34 million guaranteed to Jimmy G? Does that mean the Raiders are still playing checkers and are looking for a king in the draft?
I don't know where they're picking at in the draft. I got to see what their draft pick is, see if they're going to go after a quarterback or not. If they go after a quarterback, maybe I turn around on the Raiders, but this is a sideways move. The Jimmy G move to me was a sideways move because Jimmy G, is he an upgrade from Derek Carr? Maybe for the 12 or so games that he's actually going to play. He is an upgrade from Derek Carr. The issue is there's 17 games in a season, and he doesn't seem to be able to make it to 17 games, and that's a significant problem. So that being said, I don't really know what the Raiders are going to be like here. Jacoby Myers, okay. Josh Jacobs, of course, I like Josh Jacobs.
The Raiders are picking. Let's see. Number 7.
7th. Okay,
Yeah.
so if the Raiders take a quarterback, it's hard. It's hard for me to get the chest on them, man. Only because I just don't know what they have going on there. This has been a dysfunctional organization as of late. I'm not really sure what they have going on. I like Josh Jacobs. Of course, I like Devontae Adams. I like Mason. I think it's Mason Crosby. I
Yep.
like those 3 players. Those guys I really like. The other guys are just a bunch of guys. Carr wasn't as horrible as made out to be. I think he maybe became the fall guy. But I don't think that Jimmy G signing a guy who is pretty much in street clothes a good part of his career is a significant upgrade. Like it's an upgrade from the sense that Jimmy G has been to the Super Bowl and he does win games. I'll give him credit for that. But it's just hard for me to get the chest on them without knowing. Maybe if we do this again after the draft and I see what their draft night looks like, I can get them more the benefit of the doubt. But it's just hard for me to see you run out Derek Carr, run in Jimmy G, lose Darren Waller, and think that somehow this is a much better organization. Like I don't really think much differently about them today than I did last year at this time. Might have thought higher of them last year.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's go on. Move on to the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins, they got Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
And the Rams got the 77th draft pick and tight end Hunter Long.
I don't even know him.
See, but the Fins also managed to re-sign their running back duo of Mostert and Wilson. So who's playing what here? The Fins playing checkers? The the Rams playing checkers, I think it's I think it's I don't see the Rams returning to that playoff luster.
I see.
I'm going to say here that the Rams are playing checkers because they're going to be in a rebuilding mode. I don't know what I'm going to get from Stafford, and I definitely don't know what I'm going to get from the running backs. So uh, I don't know. What's your thoughts here? I think the Rams are stuck playing chess and I mean checkers, and I don't see much different from the Dolphins as I'll explain as we get further down the line. But what's your thoughts?
Pretty much the same. This is a mad move, only because we've become such a quarterback-driven league, James, that until we know what's up with the quarterbacks on these respective teams, none of this stuff matters. You can get Jalen Ramsey, but if Tua ain't out there, and you're forced to start like Mike White or something like that, and you got to play against now Aaron Rodgers and some of the other players that are going to be in your division. Who cares if Jalen Ramsey's out there? You know, I mean, it doesn't really matter. The same thing with the Rams. You play in a tough division. If you don't even have Baker Mayfield to start now. If you are starting Stafford, and Stafford, we haven't seen him play in what, like about a year? I'm not sure how many games he played last year. I know it was few. It's hard to know what any of these teams and pick 77. Get out of here with that. Like, I mean, that could be somebody great, but it's pick 77. You don't even know what we just talked about what the Raiders are gonna do with the 7th pick. This is 77th. I have no clue what they're gonna do here. So I'm with you on kind of like meh on both these teams, man. I'm gonna put checkers for both these teams until we figure out who the quarterbacks are gonna be.
Now, the Commanders staying in here down. The Commanders reached a 4-year, $90 million, $60 million of it guaranteed with defensive end Tyrone Payne. Mm-hmm. So only Aaron makes more at that position. Now, he is alongside defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, and he has edge rushers. Shout out to our station and Monte. And the Commanders could have one of the NFL's most imposing D lines. But is this old-time checkers trying to win with defense?
This is why I was so upset that Eric Bieniemy came here. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. Like, I don't know what year they're playing in, man. Like, I don't know. We can kind of see my last comment with the Dolphins and the Rams, right? Until we know who's throwing the ball. Until we know who's throwing the ball there, does it really matter? Because the best offense is going to be the good defense. We've seen it time and time again. We saw Patrick Mahomes doing it on one leg. If you got a player that's transcended at the quarterback position, they are going to be able to overcome a lot of things happening on the defensive side of the ball. So until I can see if I'm the Commanders, I want to see some of this money. If I was a Commander fan, I need to see what money we're putting on our offense. Now, they have some with Dotson, and they got good skill players. They just need a quarterback, though. The most important position is still a question mark on their team. So until we get that, and you know what's funny, because I was talking about Lamar Jackson being a good fit for them if they were to go, because a lot of the musical chairs have been filled right now quarterback-wise. I would like to see that. Then I'm back on Bieniemy being there if Lamar Jackson somehow joins the Commanders, but they need that quarterback. It's hard for me to get excited about these other positions getting paid, James, and there's glaring omission at the most important spot on the field.
Well, let's talk about the Ratbirds since you brought up Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. They put the non-exclusive franchise tag worth $32.41 million on Lamar. But are the Ratbirds playing checkers, chess, or chicken?
I think that they're doing kind of what they have to do. When you look at the deal, and I'm just going to use the deal that kind of Lamar himself put out there because I don't really know. I'm not really executive with the Ravens or anything, but when you look at the deal, let's just talk about the deal he tweeted, the 3 years, 133 guaranteed. I don't think that's a horrible deal. The guy, only because he's 25 years old, 3 years, he'll be 28. You already have made 133 million guaranteed. You have another bite at the apple and you can bet on yourself. Because I think that the biggest issue, and this is why I didn't want to sign him down here in Atlanta, is going to be the health. People talk about the MVP season as if it was last season. People talk about the Ravens, his winning record, as if the Ravens were a losing team. The last 20 to 25 years, the Ravens have like 4 losing seasons. Lamar has not played for them 25 years. Lamar's played for them, 4 or 5 years. They were winning before he got there. So it's kind of like, and it's rough too because you're representing yourself, right? So you got to hear all the negative stuff to your face. Like, you don't have an agent to kind of like sugarcoat it for you and say, hey, well, they're kind of worried about this, so they're worried about that. You know what I mean? But there's no way he plays on a $32 million tag. I'm not playing on that.
They're talking trash to your mama, basically.
It sucks, right? Because it's horrible because it's a horrible negotiating spot for them, right? Because I think that the health is a serious. So the thing is, James, to me, I'm very consistent when it comes to this across basketball and across football or baseball or whatever sport. The health matters. I cannot stand when people talk about these players as if they're playing all the games. Remember when we had this conversation when KD first got signed in Phoenix? And I remember when we had this conversation and said, yo, if he stays healthy, it'll be all good. If he stays healthy. But history has said something different as of late. And that we talk about these guys as if they've only missed 1 or 2 games. He's missed about a third of the season the last 2 seasons. And then you hear things like, oh, before he went out, they were 8-4. Well, if it was a 12-game season, that would have been excellent. But they had 5 more of them coming. And the 5 more they had coming were at the end of the season when they're playing, when people are really tightening up. We're not talking about August, September, October football. We're talking about him missing games in November and December. It counts for something. So if there was somehow a magic wand I could wave and say that Lamar Jackson will stay healthy for the entirety of the contract, me being a Falcons fan, let's go ahead and sign him right now. Let's sign him up for 6-7 years to $200 or $300 million. Let's go ahead and sign him up right now. But at the same time, if a player has shown you that they've missed 5 games last year, they missed 5 games the year before, James, if they sign him and he misses 5 games next year, whose fault is it? It's going to be the Ravens' fault because the guy's been missed 5 games the last couple of seasons. He's missed 10 games in the last 2 seasons. If I could sign him and give him what he want and just knew for a fact that he was going to be on the field, because to me, it's not the fact that he's a rushing quarterback. I do think his passing is disrespected. He's a better passer than given credit for. It's not that. It's the health, though. And the health matters because when you're talking, I'm allergic to fully guaranteed and injury prone. I'm allergic to those 2 words being used. And that's kind of where Lamar's at. I feel like they put the franchise tag on him in this way so that he can go out and see what they wanted. It's kind of like DeAndre Ayton, the Suns did with D. Ayton. DeAndre Ayton went out, got a check. They said, don't even pack up. You don't even pack your house because you're not leaving Phoenix. And I think that was same thing what happened with the Ravens. Somebody matches, say, yo, we'll get Lamar 42. Ravens come back, we'll give him 42. So
but
I don't know.
But here's the thing, Reggie. This is football.
Mm-hmm.
You're having large men colliding at, I'm not a physics major, but I'm sure when you talk about the amount of force that is applied to the body when it's hit by...
It's like a car accident, man.
Right. On every play.
Yeah.
So, to me, to think that a football player is going to play 17 or 18 games a season is a little far-fetched. It's kind of like a boxer fighting every month. I mean, as much as we'd like to see it,
for sure,
that's not conducive to his health, for one. Or, just think about it. For 18 weeks, these men are involved in some of the most violent collisions without having a vehicle around them.
For sure.
So, I mean, now I can also see an injury clause in the contract.
It would have to be
Not,
significant for me, James. Like, it would have to be a significant injury.
okay. Let's say in order for you to get this fully paid contract, you have to play 15 games a season.
I can live with that. I can live with you losing, because some players just don't play all 17. But I'm going to need you out there 15 to 16 of them, because those other guys are playing in the same league that you're playing in. They're not missing a third of the season every year. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, if you had quarterbacks, let's say that you could look at your quarterbacks and you had a list of quarterbacks and you said, yo, we've all missed 5 games. So you can't necessarily label me with this, but that's not the way it is. That's not the way it's been.
No.
You know, you're missing 5 games. The other players are missing a game or 2, and I'll let you live on a game or 2. And some of them are healthy scratches towards the end of the season. So I'll let you live on those misses.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, I'm more inclined to forgive a football player missing a few games than I am to see a basketball player in street clothes.
Well, you see that Patrick Mahomes injury. Patrick Mahomes injured his ankle. That your basketball would have been out for 4 months. 4 months he would have been out with that.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Let's talk about the Giants. The Giants gave Daniel Jones 4 years, 160 mil. 82 guaranteed. As we mentioned earlier, they signed tight end Waller for a 3rd round draft pick. They put the tag on Saquon. If Waller is the long-term solution at tight end, are the Giants playing checkers or chess?
I cannot possibly give chess to the Giants with this Daniel Jones contract. It is not possible. This guy threw for 15 touchdowns. You know what's funny? Is he's getting paid about $2 to $3 million per touchdown last year for what he actually threw for. He threw for 15 touchdowns last year. Now, he threw for about roughly 3,200 yards. And if you add his rushing yards with 600-700 rushing yards, you're pretty good, but you still don't get to 4,000 yards. You still don't get to 4,000. And yet, the man wanted 45. He wanted more than what the Giants actually talked him down.
We talked about this.
He wanted more money.
I think at one time he even came out of his mouth with 60.
You got to get out of here, bro. Like, you got to go sit down, man. Like, and you know what's crazy? So when you look at the league, and James, we've kind of gotten away from this historically, but if you go look at the league, 90s, early 2000s, and even in the 80s, it was always next up gets paid. And that strategy, that the fact that was the way things worked, is crazy. Could you imagine, like, you work in like accounting or marketing, and because your raise is today and my raise was last week, it don't matter how we do. We both are in accounting. We're both decent employees. I'm going to pay this next person more because they asked later than the other person asked. The numbers have to mean something. When people are talking numbers that are way beyond Patrick Mahomes, I'm wondering, what are you thinking? Why do you think that this money should be paid? If I was the Giants, as sexy as it isn't to pay running backs, I probably would have paid a running back before I would have franchised Daniel Jones. But when I looked at the contract, it's better than it looks. Because when I saw the 4 years, 160, I'm like, they are crazy. They have lost their mind of paying this guy for one good year that he's had. And his one good year is 15 touchdowns. Could you imagine that too, James? Let's think about that too. His one good year, which we call last year his glaring one good year, was 15 touchdowns. There are 17 games. It's 15 touchdowns. And that's his great year. This is the year that the guy wants to get paid $40 to $50 million a year on. I don't know what's going to Giants here. I can't call this checkers because I don't believe in Daniel Jones that much. Can the guy at least give me 25 touchdowns? Give me 20, 25. You ain't got to go. You don't have to have like 35 and 7 like some of the elites will have. You don't need to have that. But at the same time, bro, you're being paid like you're an elite quarterback, at least for the first year or two, because it's front loaded. So it's really like a 2 to 3 year contract maybe. But no, they don't get checkers for this. They get checkers for this contract. No chess paying Daniel Jones even near $40 million a year.
Yeah, you got to at least give me Dak numbers, but that's
at least it. And you see how people crap on him. Look, what is going on with, like, people crap on Dak, and then you co-sign this Daniel Jones contract? I will never understand this Daniel Jones contract, or the belief that now he may have turned a corner. I think the corner got turned last year because Saquon was finally healthy. I don't think it's any coincidence that Daniel Jones' best year was also a year that Saquon played most of the games.
Yes, thank you. From the outhouse to the penthouse.
Yeah.
The Seahawks gave Geno Smith 3 years, $105 million extension, $75 million in salary, $30 million in incentives. They addressed the D line with the addition of Draymond Jones, signed for reportedly $51 million. Do you think the Seahawks made the right move, making Geno their king?
I would have to dig down to see how much this actually is. And I think he's making in the 30s, which is way more than what he was making last year.
Oh yeah, twice as much as he made last year.
I think he's deserved it. His completion percentage was almost 70%. Like it. I mean, if Daniel Jones, if you use Daniel Jones as a contract, you know, people like him and Lamar should get paid $1 billion, man. I guess, you know, it's the good thing about the Seahawks situation. They're not married to this. You know, even if they were to get another guy, Geno's a good locker room guy. So even if they were to get another quarterback and you put him under Geno, you still bought yourself, you know, you have a rookie contract guy and you got your guy that you're paying right now that you can get out of in a couple of years, relatively short amount of time. So I like this move. I'm not ready to even say that Geno is the head of the Seahawks yet. It's hard to say, but at the same time, he keeps them competitive. And I think he's at least worth the money if you're trying to field a competitive team and you like a guy in the locker room who can mentor a young guy.
David Carr, he's with the Saints now. Do you think the Saints pulled the trigger a little too soon on David?
Derek.
Derek, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And they did sign Michael Thomas to a 1-year contract. They have the young rookie there that is their future, of course. The Saints, checkers or chess?
As a Falcons fan, I hate to give any props to the Saints in any shape, form, or fashion. And this is kind of like it's not a sideways move, but these moves, all of them in the NFC South, to be honest with you, without seeing who actually the Panthers are going to draft, we're all kind of like in rebuild land. It's like a rebuild division. You know what I mean? Like it's okay. They signed Derek Carr. He's better than Andy Dalton, I think. So I think it's an upgrade. Michael Thomas, I'm not sure I'm not sure what's going on there. They paid him and he hasn't played since they paid him. So I don't know really what's going on with Michael Thomas there. It'll be interesting to see. I'm going to say checkers only because I think chess needs to be reserved for teams that make moves that we know are going to be runaway great moves for them. And the Derek Carr is a better move, but I don't think any of us are going to put the Saints in the Super Bowl because of it either. It's that time, you know.
Well, this subject, this next topic that we're going through is called WTF.
Well, yeah.
So that's the reason why I played the music before we started, and you can let me know whenever you have to go. But
I got about another 20. I'm gonna stay to about 10:30, so I got another solid 20 for you here.
Okay, well, then I'm going to start with my Falcons question, because you have to kind of explain to me, being a Falcons fan, what's going on here. Okay. The Falcons spent $233 million in acquiring free agents on both sides of the ball. Now,
I have no clue where that money went to. I have no clue.
Well, if you go on ESPN, they'll break it down to you and show you where it went. But here's my I don't know whether to call it a pet peeve or what to call it, but Taylor Heineke is your backup for Desmond Ridder.
Do you feel like it should be opposite? Do you feel like Desmond Ritter should be the backup for Heidi? It's
no. The fact that you brought Desmond Ritter, I mean, that you brought Taylor Heineke, after. I mean, to me, you could have kept Marcus. I don't really see a lot of difference.
Marcus left the building, bro. Marcus said he didn't want to be around no more. Marcus left as soon as they said they were starting Desmond Ritter. Marcus was in Hawaii or something. We couldn't even find him.
Well, and I mean, Taylor, I think that right now, the way that you're structured, I think that Desmond Ritter is your quarterback of the future. You have to give him at least eight to 10 games next year to see what you get.
Yes.
So, what you're thinking? Do you think that we'll see the Falcons maybe pick a quarterback in maybe the 4th or 5th round?
It's interesting, man, because it's interesting. I don't know. I really feel like we should have started Desmond. If we had started Desmond Ritter earlier last year, we wouldn't be in this situation now, because right now we're coming into this year with the kid being somewhat of an unknown quantity and not doing bad enough to lose the job. We still don't know. And that was the worst situation, in my opinion, last year. That was a worse situation we could come into this year, is not having clarity on what Desmond Ritter actually is. I like Taylor Heineke, so I didn't mind this signing because I like Taylor Heineke.
Well, you got him on the cheap. It wasn't like you had to pay.
Yeah, exactly. He can win games. He's a baller, and he can win games. I'd have no issue with him being the backup quarterback, but we do still have that question mark because we just don't know what Ritter is, right? And I'm hearing mixed things. I hear a lot of people say we're taking edge rusher or something like that at that 8th position. If we don't take a quarterback there, I definitely don't know why we would take one further on down the line. Like, our quarterback room is kind of full now. We don't even know what we got. Why would we, unless we're gonna go for it and take one of these young kids, one of these young studs, then I don't see the point of adding a quarterback besides injury situation. Maybe it's kind of like, how 49ers did with Brock Purdy when they picked him at the very end. Maybe throw a quarterback in there at the very end somewhere. But from what I'm hearing, we're taking an edge rusher. If we do move up to take a quarterback, it'll get interesting, because then you have Ritter on a rookie contract. You'd have 3 quarterbacks not getting paid nothing. You'd have a quarterback, 2 rookie quarterbacks, and the Taylor Heineke getting paid backup money, all making probably less than what Daniel Jones making this year. I don't know. It'll be a situation like that. So I don't. We're going to be looking for a lot of answers after the draft. It's really hard to judge some of these free agents moves, James, without knowing what these teams are actually going to be pursuing in the draft. But I'm hearing an edge rusher, though. But it wouldn't surprise me if we jumped up. My surprise would be us taking a quarterback towards the end of the draft and legit expecting them to play. Like, you could always get a Brock Purdy type surprise, but the expectations will be low if we don't take one early.
You spent a lot of that $233 million on your defense, so
we
you might
want
to check.
We need it, man.
I know you said it was hard for you to say anything about the Bucks, but you should have been ecstatic when the Bucks signed Baker Mayfield to a 1-year contract.
I'm not mad. I'll tell you that.
That's a good way to put it. I'm not mad. Okay.
Not at all.
Well, now that we got your division out of the way, let's talk about the elephant in the room, because Aaron said that he wants to be a Jet.
Now, going to the Jets.
So now they have acquired Lassard on a 4-year, $44 million contract. $22 million of it guaranteed, acquiescing to at least one of Aaron's wish lists.
So that's about 2 years in, roughly, I guess, on average.
Right.
Okay.
So now, do you think that jilting Corey Davis will come back to bite the Jets? And are the Jets and Aaron and his wish list away from Super Bowl 58?
I don't think Corey, I mean, this is no knock on Corey Davis. I think Corey Davis is an okay player, but I mean, I don't really feel like if you are having a conversation with Aaron Rodgers about anything, you're not scared of what Corey Davis feels about these conversations? Like, or you're not really scared? I mean, come on. Corey Davis could be on a different team next year. I don't know if anybody would know when you look at who they actually have there. Garrett Wilson. If they go with just, let's say there is no Corey Davis, and they go with just Garrett Wilson and Lazard as your 1 and 2, and they just have a third guy in there they pick up free agent wise. I think that'll be enough for Aaron Rodgers, especially if Breece Hall comes back. I think that'll be enough for them. Now, what's interesting is when I went, I watched Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee show, and he said this is BS. He said he didn't. The wish list was BS. He says he don't know why people thinks that he would come to a new team with a wish list. And I kind of believe him there in a sense. He did allude to the fact that maybe they would have asked like, hey, we're thinking about signing this guy from the Packers. What do you think type situation? But that he said that somehow morphed into a wish list of players. And he says that is garbage. And he didn't go with a wish list. So I'm going to take him at his word that he didn't have a wish list there. I do think the Jets should be excited though. You know what's funny? The Jets have had one 4,000-yard passer, Broadway Joe. Broadway Joe didn't play in these last few decades, bro. Like Broadway Joe
played 12 game seasons.
He was their last 4,000-yard passer, James. They couldn't get it done in 17 games last year.
We scrimmaged against Beaver Falls High School, Newcastle High. We scrimmaged against them quite regularly, and it was not pretty when Joe Namath was there. Believe me, I was on junior varsity, and it was, we stopped practice to watch this kid.
Yeah, I bet you can sling it, man. But so I think the Jets should be happy, man. Jets should be excited that you got at least a player that's respectable at the quarterback position. A guy who routinely throws up 4,000-yard seasons, and you guys haven't had one in almost 50 years. It's incredible.
Now I'm looking at the depth chart right now, but of course they still have Zach Wilson as the starting quarterback. But your running back is, as you said, Breece Hall.
Yeah.
Wide receivers Garrett Wilson, and Elijah Moore, and Malik Taylor. Wide receiver 2, Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, and Deontay Spencer, and wide receiver 3, Alan Lazard, and who's this? Irvin Charles. Yeah.
Disrespectful. They would put Lazard behind Corey Davis. What does Corey Davis earn to be ahead of Lazard? Like, is he getting paid like Lazard? I don't think he is. Is he?
No, but I mean, when you talk about, think about it. You got Garrett Wilson, rookie of the year, I believe.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson's on that rookie contract, Ohio State. He's a great player. Like I liked the strides that he took last year. I'm a fan. I'm Garrett Wilson fan.
Elijah Moore, Malik Taylor. You don't think you're going to be lighting a fire up under these guys? Not talking about Corey Davis. Denzel Mims, you don't think that you're going to be lighting a fire up under these guys, bringing Lazard in here, and especially if they don't make it to the playoffs? Because now going back to this, whether he has a wish list or not, because I find it hard to believe anything that comes out of Aaron Rodgers' mouth.
That's funny.
Yeah. So for me, him saying this, that he didn't have a wish list, kind of reinforces the fact that he does have a wish list. I would not be surprised if he did give him a wish list, considering the man's won 1 Super Bowl and 3 MVPs and has not a damn thing to show for it. But anyhow,
that's a pretty. I think people would take that career that you just said, James. Considering, introduce me like that. Considering the guy's won 1 Super Bowl, 3 MVPs, but doesn't have anything else going on. There's a lot of guys played for 100 years and don't have those stats.
But to me, at least 2 of those MVPs are suspect.
In James' world, he's got 1 MVP and 1 Super Bowl.
He's got 1 MVP, 1 Super Bowl, and look at what's his record as a playoff quarterback.
It's the playoff. It's the playoff is going to be his Achilles heel as far as him not showing up in maybe those best moments. But here's the problem, James. The problem is you're the Jets. Who the hell are you talking about? Like y'all suck for years. We just brought up the fact that about the 50-year 4,000-yard drought y'all had. I didn't even know that stat.
Okay, is a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers better than a 28-year-old Josh Allen?
If Josh Allen was available, I believe that Josh Allen would be more sought after. You know what I mean?
No, but this is the man that you have to play twice a year. You've got to
your
play
alternatives, James. You got Zach Wilson out here. Like you look at your alternatives. The cupboard is bare, my friend. Like you ain't got nobody there.
I'm not saying that under the circumstances, this is not the best quarterback available to the Jets.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I do not think that it makes the Jets that much more competitive unless, because Aaron Rodgers is not going to do a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen. Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball for you. He's going he's accurate. He's got the cannon for the arm, but just like we saw with Brady, he is 38 years old. So it's father.
I think it's a good plan, James, for the next 2 to 3 years. I think it's best best plan the Jets can hope for over the next 2 to 3 years. Because if I'm going to go into this game, I'd rather, if I do have to play the Josh Allens of the world, I'd rather play them with Aaron Rodgers than Zach Wilson.
But here's the thing, to me, and I might be wrong, because in 2 years, Garrett Wilson's coming up for a contract. Breece Hall is coming up for a contract. Whoever you're bringing in, because in 2 years, 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, even if you get a good 2 years on him, you still have to bring in somebody to eventually take his place.
For sure.
So for 2 years, but are they overpaying? Guys like Lazard, as I say, you got some guys in there that we might see a much more improved Jets wide receiving core, because I think bringing Lazard in is going to set a fire up under a lot of these young players, especially Garrett Wilson.
I think Garrett Wilson. I think it goes Garrett Wilson, Lazard, Elijah Moore, those other guys. That's my three. So Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Elijah Moore, whoever else you decide to rotate those other guys out, because they were rotating anyway. Like I had some of these guys on my fantasy team; they couldn't stay on the field. So I think it's a decent move for the Jets. I think the Jets are better today. How long they're better, I think that depends on what kind of contingency plan they set up. Because as soon as you bring a guy in like that, you're on the clock for your next guy that you need to bring in almost instantly. So
almost instantly,
they're gonna have to have a plan for that, hopefully.
Now, rumor has it that the Panthers are seeking C.J. Stroud as the number one pick. But if you're picking C.J. Stroud, you got Andy Dalton for his backup. Really?
It's the NFC South, bro. You got Baker being chased, Andy Dalton getting paid. This is the NFC South, man. This condition. This is the state of affairs here in the NFC South, man.
The fans acquire Jet quarterback Mike White to back up Tua. What's your thoughts on that?
Not horrible. It's not horrible, James. It's the best of a bad situation, because you got one guy who got injured at the end of the season, replaced him with another guy who's injured at the end of the season. You got two guys that are injured at the end of the season.
Didn't you just talk about this? If you got a guy that's missed 5 games and then you pick up another guy that's, Did we just talk about this?
We
I
did.
mean,
We did. We did. And I think that given the context that we were speaking about it previously, it's kind of backs up what we were saying here now in a sense of like, until this gets worked out, I don't know what the Dolphins are. I don't know how much to respect them or not. I did like when Mike White came in. Mike White came in and looked like the adult in the room when he was with the Jets. You know, he came in like, okay, now we have a chance. Yeah, the Jets, they were wearing T-shirts with this guy's name on it. I'm not sure how that made Zach feel, but they got T-shirts with this guy's name on it. We actually got a good quarterback, but he got injured. So, I mean, I got to see you actually out there planning. Maybe between him and Tua, they can get through 17 games.
Let's talk about the AFC North here. The Eagles, they got Rashad Penny on a 1-year deal because Sanders is gone. What do you think about this move? Low risk, high reward?
I don't know, man. I would love to know.
Once again, 5 games, 10 games, 7 games. How many games are you going to get from Penny?
I don't know, man. And it's definitely a definite downgrade, right? Downgrade from Miles Sanders. But at the same time, contractually, I don't know what he was offered from another team. You know what I mean? I'm not sure what offers were out there for Miles Sanders. I do believe that he is a.
It was just signed today. It was signed before we went on the air. I didn't get a chance to look and see what
he signed with the Panthers.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like, did the Eagles choose not to pay him? Did they dismiss the guy? Like, I would need to know more details because it's not uncommon, James, for teams that make runs in the Super Bowl and playoff runs for other teams to come and poach players off your team. That's pretty common.
Of course.
So it's not uncommon. I don't know if they ever thought Rashard Penny was a replacement for Miles Sanders or if this was just born out of necessity. I guess is what I'm kind of coming at too. Like where you just feel like, well, Sanders is gone. We got to get somebody. So you pick up Rashard Penny. You could do worse than him, but maybe you address this through the draft also.
The Cowboys, they put the franchise tag on Tony Pollard. They let Zeke go this afternoon. We just heard.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
And Mike McCarthy will be calling plays because he thinks that Dak needs a new voice in his head. What's your thoughts here? You know, is this definitely a Cowboy WTF move?
Not with the Zeke situation. The Zeke situation.
Not with the Zeke. The Zeke
the
came
WTF
in after.
The Zeke was actually paying him the money. That was a WTF move for there. Putting a franchise tag on Tony Pollard, yes. Because that seems like the blueprint for running backs right now. The franchise tag should be called a running back tag from this point forward because that's what running backs can be playing on. If it was up to me, I'm a franchise that running back. Only way I wouldn't do that is if I'm Daniel Jones is on the team. Then I'm going to franchise him and then pay Saquon Barkley. But going back to this situation, the McCarthy calling plays and thinks Dak needs a new voice in his ear is always funny because these guys are making so much money, right? Like you're making so much money. You spend a whole lifetime trying to get on this field. You're on the field. I don't think these guys are motivated by the sound of somebody's voice in their ear or the fact that the plays are now coming from me. So now I expect to see you take strides on the field. I do believe in great play callers. So if he's a better play caller, then I think they had Kellen Moore last year, I'm going to say. If you're a better play caller than Kellen Moore, okay, it is what it is. You're a better play caller. But it's funny hearing stuff like need a new voice in the ear. Like that should be your motivating factor after making all this money and spending your life playing this game, trying to get on this field, playing for one of the most storied franchises in the league. That would be strange to me. That'd be a little sus if that was actually true, in my opinion.
The 49ers gave Sam Darnold a 1-year contract. Does that prove that the 49ers are a plug-and-play offense?
Depending on how he does, if he goes out there and pulls a Brock Purdy, they can't seem to lose with a quarterback. Like they throw a quarterback in and they're winning with him. So it depends on how he does. If he goes out there and he shows up and they can pull double-digit games, the quarterback's position in the 49ers is a strange one, man. It's a strange one because they still have Brock Purdy, right?
You still got
Trey Lance. And you still got Trey Lance there, who we're still waiting to come.
Brock Purdy is going to be gone at least the first half of the season with the Tommy John.
Okay, so if Brock Purdy's gone, for maybe this is the contingency plan for him. But it's interesting to see them jump over Trey Lance. Though, like he should be back, right? Like how long is he gone for?
Well, that's the other question. If is Trey Lance going to be ready at the beginning of the year?
Man, if Trey Lance doesn't take a stride of some sort next year, we're not going to be exactly going Jamarcus Russell status, but it's going to become he's going to be in bust. He's going to be flirting with bust land if we can't get some kind of clarity on him this upcoming season. Man, I'm telling you, especially for all they gave up to go get him.
Of course, no doubt about that. The Colts, their investment in Matty Ice is officially over.
Come back home, Matt. Come back home.
But well, hey, evidently you guys took. Who did we just mention? You just took somebody that.
Oh, he ain't playing. He just coming here to retire. That's it.
Oh, he's just coming to retire.
Have to come back home, sign your 1 day, retire as a Falcon, hang it up, commentate, do whatever you want to do.
Now, when you talk about the Matty Ice, now the Matty, don't feel too bad for him because for 2023, the Colts still owe him $12 million.
Yeah,
that's nothing. That's nothing to sneeze at. So
no. So, that's more than what Taylor Heineke's being paid.
What's your take on the Colts? If there was a WTF organization, I think the Colts. You're not bringing Saturday back.
Yes, that's it right there. The WTF moment is consistent. As soon as they pull Saturday off the couch, it was a WTF moment for the Colts. Like, I don't know how you guys are running this organization. You pulled a man off the couch to coach for a job he never applied for. So that I don't know what's going on with the Colts. So we'll see what happens here with this quarterback pick. We'll see who they take, and then go from there because the Colts don't have a bad team. It's just. It seems dysfunctional there, man. Like they have good skill players and they're just completely dysfunctional. So we'll see what happens with the Colts as far as who they draft, and I'll probably start to kind of figure it out there. But they would dumpster fire ever since they brought in the Saturday, and it's no fault of Jeff Saturday, but you literally hired this man off his couch. Like I don't understand it.
Well, you hired him out of the rah-rah room. He was the guy that used to come in and hang out with the players, right?
Right. And he didn't want to take the jobs you offered him before. You offered him a jobs where his course, like we said, okay, we'll make you the Lions coach or an offensive line coach, something like that. That's like you applying for a job and they say, yo, we're going to put you in accounting. You work your way up to marketing. Then you work your way up to sales. And then you can become CEO. And you say no. And then 3 weeks later, we hire you as CEO anyway. Like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So they got what they deserved with that. And like I said, there was no knock on Jeff Saturday because I feel like a lot of people would have took the job. They hired me out of here. I'm off this show right now. I'm on a flight. I'm on a flight to Indianapolis. I'm coaching the Colts. You know what I mean?
Quarterback coach, defensive back, whatever. You give me a call. I'm on the plane.
I'm on the plane, bro.
The Chiefs decided to give offensive tackle Jonathan Taylor a 4-year deal, $80 million, $60 million of it guaranteed, and they let Orlando Brown go to free agency while cutting defensive end Frank Clark. What are your thoughts here? First of all, to me, I'm not saying that the transition can't be made, but isn't Jonathan Taylor a right tackle?
I don't understand. I mean, maybe there's a reason to cut Frank Clark, but I liked Frank Clark on the Chiefs.
I loved Frank Clark.
Solid player. So I don't know really if this is the same kind of situation we were talking about before with Miles Sanders and the Eagles. Like, I would have to look at the contract to see if this was born out of necessity. Like you felt like you had to do it. He got a better deal somewhere, or he's probably going to leave anyway. Like I would need to look into the details because on the surface, I'm not letting Frank Clark out of there personally. The offensive tackle sign, okay, we'll see what happens. But the Chiefs, this doesn't necessarily seem like a glaring need for the Chiefs. The Chiefs' offensive line is pretty good, so maybe this keeps them good. I don't know. But I definitely am sad to see Frank Clark not be there, though. I'm a fan of his.
Yeah, Frank wanted a long-term deal. They wanted to give him a deal 4 years, I think, or less, and Frank wasn't having it. But hey, we're already down to the last question here, and this is about my Steelers here because I really thought that we would be going after Joey Porter Jr. at number 17.
It's a possibility. I don't think it's eliminated.
I don't think it's eliminated, but when you give Patrick Peterson 2 years, I mean, we kind of got him on the cheap. So,
I was gonna say you're not paying him anything.
No. So I mean, it's not like it, but then we also re-signed what's his name, our defensive tackle. We also begins with O. I need Bill here to pronounce names. But anyway, do you think that this means that the Steelers are going to go after Jalen Carter, who brings some baggage with him now?
Where are the Steelers picking at?
17.
I don't think he'll be there. Not unless they jump. I don't think Carter makes it out of the top 15, to be honest with you. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't make it out of the top 10. Now, originally before all this came out, he was supposed to be preemptively top 5-ish before this stuff came out. So maybe that caused him to drop. I don't know if that caused him to drop 10 spots though. Because the NFL is not exactly a moral league. Like it's a league where they will hire almost anybody in this league if they feel like you can help their team win. Now, me being the Steelers are like my secondary team, so it's the Falcons and the Steelers. I love the Steelers. I love the Steelers. I love everything about the organization. I think that they are the epitome of football, in my opinion. I don't mind this Patrick Peterson move. I think they got him on the cheap. Added him to the defense, which I don't really feel like is a glaring need. I think that we just need to see what the kid Pickett is going to do. Is Kenny Pickett really the guy or not? I think that is going to be the more glaring thing. Like we look at what Thomason was able, one of his best coaching jobs last year, in my opinion, and then the year before too, when Ben was kind of like on his last leg and stuff like that. That's when Mike had some of his best coaching years, in my opinion, when he's able to kind of keep the Steelers still relevant. And without knowing if Kenny Pickett is taking that step or not, because the defense is good, like the Steelers D, you know what I mean? It's Steelers got good defense, it's respectable. So I maybe it's an outsized expectation, but I expect the Steelers to put a decent defense on the field no matter what move they make. That being said, though, James, the guy slinging it back there, I need to see more from him. I got to see if Pickett is really that guy or not. I know it ain't Trubisky, I'll tell you that. He definitely ain't the guy.
Oh no, it definitely won't be Trubisky. I think Pickett is, if he stays within himself, as he did when he was with the University of Pittsburgh, because the Steelers had plenty of time all through his college career to watch him because they do
building,
practice.
Right? I want to say it's the same.
It is the same facility, same building. I mean, So I think if the kid stays within himself, he can be a decent quarterback. Now, I'm not going to put him as an elite quarterback, but I think that he is enough above average to whereas if we can get the rest of our offense going.
Najee was a little bit disappointing in the beginning of the year last year. He came on towards the end of the year, but definitely disappointing in the beginning.
Oh, most definitely. One other move I wanted to ask you about real quick before I get your final thoughts. Juju going to the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
I mean,
I would rather him come back to the Steelers. Come on back home, bro. Like, come on back.
No.
Because like, what is? I mean, okay, you lose Jacoby Myers, you get Juju. Okay, I guess. I don't really.
But don't you think? But don't you think that Jacoby Myers is maybe not to the team necessarily that he went to, but don't you think that Jacoby Myers is an improvement over Juju?
Yeah, I would have to say that only because I think that's what the numbers would bear out. I'll have to look at Juju to see what he played last year, but Juju showed out in the Super Bowl, though. Like, it's in that playoff run that the Chiefs had.
Oh, yeah.
Juju showed up.
Yeah.
Juju showed up when it was needed most. And there's a lot of players in this league you cannot say that for.
Well, hey, Tony showed up too. Who would have thought? I mean, New York probably wished now that they had kept him.
Right. Kadarius got with the Chiefs and was scoring instantly. Like.
Yeah, so hey man, good to have you hang out with me. Glad you could make it. Why don't you give us your final thoughts, man, and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, man, I'll be back week after next. Always a pleasure to be on with you. Here's a hoping that we got some good March Madness. Now, from what I hear, we had a guy on here last time I was on, and he was talking about how close the teams were to each other, right?
Jeffrey Fan, he'll be back on next week.
He was on, and he was talking about how close the teams were to each other, and I've heard a lot of other analysts kind of echo that. So that has me excited to watch a lot of March Madness. So here's a great March Madness for us. You can find me at justtestat.com, regnatl.com. Check me out, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. I definitely appreciate you having me on. Always a pleasure.
Have you picked your brackets yet?
Man, that is a fool's errand for me, bro. Like, I might as well turn off the lights and be throwing darts at the dartboard and do it, man, because I have zero. You know what? It's so many teams, James, right? There's so many teams that I'd be lying to say that I'm not. Like, I know that a few of the top teams. Once I get down to these bottom guys, team number 60 and team number 61 and so, come on, I have no clue who these guys are.
See, yeah. Life was so simple when it was only 32 teams.
Yeah, I tell you that.
But then it was guys like me that advocate. We need more teams. We need more teams. We need So I'm waiting for it to get up to 112.
Right, because somebody's gonna be mad they didn't get in. Team number 75, upset.
Yeah, hey, and I'm interested in seeing how the football playoffs are going to gradually expand.
I think a few more teams are going to be added here soon, man. They're going to have that thing up to 50 teams here soon. Well, we'll be right back in the bowl situation that we were in for all these years.
Well, but the thing of it is that you're still only going to have 5. I'm predicting 5 super conferences at the most. The Big Ten's not going anywhere. The SEC's not going anywhere. Pac-12's not going anywhere, so you got 3 right there.
3, yeah, for sure.
What's the conference now? Even though they've lost Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC,
that's a massive loss for that conference, man. Like, I would go back and see, but that's if teams keep doing stuff like that, it's a death knell for some of these smaller conferences.
Well, the smaller conferences are going to have to do, like they used to do, band together, unionize or whatever. But I mean, hey, I mean, we know that we're never going to see a San Diego State win the national title. I mean,
it's far off, man. I tell you, I wouldn't be holding breath for that one.
Yeah, I mean, it was a miracle that TCU had the year that they had this year. I mean, that's about the closest I think. Now that we have all, these super conferences starting to put it together, I think that's going to be, like you say, that's the end of the little man. But hey, Reg, thank you as always, man, and I look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks. You have a great night.
See you next time, bro.
Yeah. Always good talking with Reg. As I said, Don is in Hawaii. We're hoping to get Bill back soon. And just so that everyone knows, please keep your prayers. Keep Demetrius in your prayers, and we know how much it is when we see people going through these types of situations. I see Bill is here. Bill, you can't. You're late.
Well, I mean, as you know, I'm coming from another show.
I know, I know. We were talking it over with Reg a little while ago, but maybe you could give us a little better resume for Mr. Spencer that has just passed. Felton. We had a couple
Oh,
of moments of silence for Mr.
right.
Spencer and his passing away at age 55. I mean,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
yes. So, I mean, obviously, I remember him in his time as a player, both at Louisville and then finally his 12-year career in the NBA. He was, sort of a classic, big, you know, not super athletic. I mean, he luckily played at a time when you could just be a sort of back to the basket, lean against people, back them down, and half hook over them, that kind of thing. Uh, Nowadays, 7-footers are expected to bring the ball up and shoot
Shoot
threes.
threes.
Right, right, exactly. Like start the offense. So he played at a time when that wasn't asked of 290-pound basketball players. But he was a guy that took his team, to state championships in high school, twice losing, but took them at least both times to underdogs. Then went to Louisville. Still, I think holds the all-time record for career field goal. Field goal percentage at almost 63%. Replaced never remember Nervous Purvis. He's the guy that replaced Purvis Ellison. They overlapped. I think 1 year. Let me think about this. Number two. They overlapped 2 years. And he played. Sometimes he would play at the same time, sort of a twin tower situation. More often than not, he would replace Purvis Ellison when Ellison needed to take a breather. And then, he had a very solid collegiate career. Was a second-team All-American, first-team All-Conference in his time there. I think it was the Metro Conference in those days.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was the
If
Metro
memory
Conference.
serves me. And and then he and Randy Brewer, when he gets to the Timberwolves, had together made one of the tallest center combinations in the league at the time. Both of them over semi-tall. Brewer listed at 7'3", probably was a legitimate 7'1 3/4, and Spencer, probably right around 7 feet, maybe 6'11 and a half. But they were both big guys. Then he goes to Utah to replace Mark Eaton due to Mark Eaton's back problems that caused him to retire. Played with Karl Malone and John Stockton, and unfortunately ruptured his Achilles tendon. It was never quite the same player. Not that he was a super athlete even before that, but he became even more ground bound, after that. And, he was, like I said, it didn't hurt him that. I mean, the way he played, it wasn't like he had to change the way he played, but he was a little less athletic after that, after the Achilles injury. But he recovered enough to come back after missing, pretty much all of the 95 season, I believe it was. Then came back, got traded to the Magic the next year, and then played when they lost. And personally, lost Shaquille O'Neal to very famously to the Lakers in free agency. Then after literally one game replacing Shaq, he gets traded to Golden State, and then Ronnie Cycli, right, went in the other way in that trade. Played with the Warriors, was solid, maybe unspectacular. Eventually, Eric Dampier comes in, sort of pushes him to the bench, and then Adonio Foyle comes in. He's sort of pushing him deeper onto the bench. Finishes up his career a couple of years later with the Knicks, and then later was, of all things, a security guard at Atherton High in his hometown. Was an assistant basketball coach, both with Spalding and later Bellarmine in Louisville, and of course, as you mentioned, died just 3 days ago. 3 days ago, as it is now.
Yeah, at the age of 55. Bill, you went to the combine. Why don't you give us a little?
Yes. Well, James, the combine's exhausting. I don't know how the athletes do it. It was, I was achy and tired by the time I left, and I was just covering it. And I had the great honor and pleasure of getting posted up or posting up at various points. Stacey Dales, 2-time All-American, consensus All-American at Oklahoma, and I think still the all-time leading scorer. I can't remember if she's the all-time leading scorer still in Oklahoma history, but Got to see her up and close, very up close and very personal. It's, in the mosh pit around the podiums. So the watching experience of on-field drills is actually worse than, very often, like with games, it's worse than television. But you get scuttlebutt, you get rumors, you get innuendos, you get to see people having dinner with agents, and sometimes you do a little ear hustling. So there's things you can do there that you can't do on television. I heard about the Derek Carr deal to the Saints a few days before it was announced when I was at the Combine. The Derek Carr had his agent or whoever it is had rented a Airbnb in Indianapolis to facilitate legal tampering or whatever term you want to use while he was down at the Combine. And I heard that they had the framework of a deal done probably almost 2 weeks ago for the deal he ended up signing with the Saints.
Let me ask you a question before you get into the Combine itself, because we know that the Combine has been held in Indianapolis every year since '87.
Yeah,
I believe
before
it was
that Tampa and
right.
Arizona even.
But I believe this is it this year or next year the final year?
Well, originally last year was the final year, and then they said, okay, one more year. So we'll see. Each year it's one more year. Here's what I will say. They're talking about places like Los Angeles, which is a huge mistake, and some other places. There are places that you could take the Combine, and I'm sure they do a fine job. But listen to me now and hear me later. There's no city in America more perfectly designed to host a Combine than Indianapolis, Indiana, and I will tell you why. They have a physical connection between the media center, which is at the convention center, the actual stadium, Lucas Oil, and the hospital are all connected by skywalks. So you can quite literally, without ever being exposed to the outside air, if you are a player or a coach. Now, for the media, yeah, they make us walk out in the cold. But for the but if you are a player, a coach, a scout, GM, whatever, you can get to all the places I just named without ever once going outdoors. There is no other place in America where you can do that, James. So I hear the rumors. I mean, this will be the second year in a row when it's been rumored to be the final Combine in Indianapolis. I'll believe it when I see it. For all the talk about LA and all the other places that have come up, there's no place better. There's no place where it is convenient. There's no place where it will be as easy. It will be a nightmare in Los Angeles, James. An utter nightmare. Nothing is close to anything in Los Angeles. That's a terrible idea.
Well, if they put this new facility that they're talking about next to where they had the Super Bowl,
next to SoFi,
yeah, then I mean, there's a possibility, but hey,
is it going to have a hospital in it, James? If not, then I'm still going with Indianapolis.
What about the arguments that the players' union is putting forth that this is actually just a strip show?
Well, I mean, I think the more accurate description of that would be what they used to do at the Senior Bowl, and they've now changed that, so it's no longer open to the public. But for years, James, they would have these young men stripped down to their underwear and be, looked at. I mean, it for people that said, sort of a slave market vibe, that would be the moment, right? That does not go on at the Combine. There's no public exposure of that sort at the Combine. Chris Jones exception, that was a wardrobe malfunction that caused him to be exposed, as opposed to
Janet. We're going to go Janet Jackson here now. Okay.
Yeah, well,
right.
Chris Jones, I don't know if you remember, Chris Jones had I guess you could say it's worse to some extent because it was, the Southern Hemisphere as opposed to the Northern Hemisphere that unfortunately made an appearance. But yeah, so that to me was the most egregious sort of case of that was with the old Senior Bowl weigh-ins. Now, once again, that's no longer open to the public, so you no longer have that kind of, exposure.
Yeah.
But the combine is and always will be primarily about the medicals, right? That's the biggest thing that goes on. And then the second thing in terms of importance is the interviews where, meetings take place. And those things are irreplaceable. And then the third most important is, of course, the on-field workouts, and what I will say is, while you could go back to a system of, everyone, trying to get to everybody's pro days, which is more difficult and more expensive, it also means that players only get one bite at the apple. With the combine and pro day situation, if you have a really great combine, you can do virtually nothing at your pro day. And if you don't have a great combine, you still get your pro day to make up. If they do away with the combine, which I don't think will ever happen, but if that happened, then it reduces to the players sort of a one and done situation in terms of the on-field workouts part. And then, yes, you can say, oh, just look at my tape. And that works if you're already a top pick. But if you're a guy that's looked at as a fifth rounder, you want to be looked at as a third rounder, that's never going to happen without something like the combine. So whether you, what I'd actually like to see is go back to the regional combines, which are open to players that aren't invited to the big combine. Because without those regional combines, you don't get Adam Thielen, right? There's a bunch of players whose careers happen because of those smaller regional combines, James. And when they had those small regional combines, which I understand, the NFL doesn't like doing anything that doesn't make them money, because those weren't televised and because there was no sponsorship and all that stuff, there was no money to be made from the small regional combines. While this combine was sponsored by No Bull, I think is what it was called. I think was the name of the sponsor, which I had never heard of until I got to the combine. And apparently it's a workout, their workout system or something. But yeah, and of course, obviously it's televised and you can sell shoes. They make shoes. That's what it is. They make athletic shoes. And because obviously the television rights to the combine are something you can sell, they're going to, like I said, the combine's not going anyplace. It is a moneymaker. It is incredibly important to the evaluation process for players. And I mean, the original purpose, like I said, was to not have to fly your team doctor to 100 different campuses to do medical examinations. And if it was just for that alone, the combine's not going anywhere.
So give us some names that we should be looking out for.
I could give you a bunch, but I'll give you just a few. I will start with Adetomiwa Adeboye from Northwestern. So here's a guy who comes in at 282 pounds. That's a decent career, but when he ran that 4.49 and jumped 37 inches at 282 pounds. If you run 4.49 and have a 37-inch vertical at 182 pounds, that's not too shabby, James. He did it at 282 pounds. That is insane. And I think he's the one player who helped himself the most. So remember the name of Adetomiwa Adeboye. He's a guy that played a little bit up and down the line in his time at Northwestern. Played 4-eye, played the 3, and then played on that 5 technique also as well. Had an amazing workout, and of course, I'm hearing did very well in interview sessions with teams as well. I'll give you a couple of others amongst tight ends. Remember the name of Zach Kuntz, a guy who started his career at Penn State, was briefly a teammate of Freiermuth and Jaceki, and then finds his way to Old Dominion University. I think he was a 6th-year player, which is how he was able to. Yeah, he came out. 2017 was his high school graduation year, and that was 6 years ago, right? But yes, 6'8" was, or 6'7" and 7/8 to be exact, but was a 110-meter hurdles champ in high school, and you could see that when it came to the movement part of the drills. He is a potentially special prospect, and though he's a guy that is a bit of a project, when you look at what people invest in at the tight end position, he has a real chance. Now, this year was sort of a down year due to the injury, but the year before that, in 2021, he had a fantastic season, and I think he probably should have come out after that year, but he came out this year, and like I said, to be that size, to be 255 pounds, and over 6'7", and to run 4.55, to have a 40-inch vertical, a 10.8 broad, a 6.87 3-cone, which is a record for players who are his height, right? No player who has been 6'7" or even over 6'6" has ever run a 3-cone at 6.87. For a person my size, that would be an impressive 3-cone. It's insanity. 23 bench reps with long arms also. Long arms and 23 bench reps of 412 in the 20-yard short shuttle. An incredible performance from a man his size. And I'm certain that for those that he sent people back to look at his tape, right? For those that weren't familiar with him, they got familiar. I was familiar with him back to his Penn State days, and then followed him. I was going to transfer to Old Dominion because that's literally when I was in college, where we played our games, because Old Dominion didn't have a football program in those days. They had a soccer program, but we used to play at Foreman Field on their campus. I'll give you a wide receiver, Matt Landers from Arkansas. Once again, a guy that had a better year previous to this year, and then since Arkansas's offense sputtered a little more this year, plus he was playing with better surrounding talent, but he's a guy that, worst case scenario, he's going to be a terrific special teams player. But Matt Landers is a classic height, weight, speed guy. And, when Al Davis was alive, he would have certainly pushed himself at least into the middle rounds on the Raiders board back when the late, great Al Davis was just picking athletes and then saying, we'll teach them to play football. But, here's a kid that comes in at 6'4", 200 pounds, runs a 4.37, has a 37-inch vertical, 10-10 broad, and he's sort of a linear straight line athlete, but he can go up and fight for the ball. Has good footwork, big play guy, long strider, can stack defenders, can get on quickly. Ball tracking's pretty good as a deep threat, and like I said, terrific sort of height, weight, speed. Could definitely be better on underneath. Is not a great route runner. His slant routes particularly let receivers back into the play. With his size, that shouldn't happen. He needs to learn more about how to beat press. And like I said, for a guy his size, he's not a great contested ball receiver. A guy his size should be great at that, and he's not.
Give me a corner.
I'm about to. I was thinking about a corner to give you. So many of the corners. I'll give you Deonte Banks, right? And I think Deonte Banks did what a lot of people were expecting him to do. But Deonte Banks is special, right? He is a special player. And he's good on tape. It's not just, he's not just a terrific combine athlete. He's also a really, 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 really good football player. And he helped himself a lot. He's a tall corner, like 6'2", ran a 4.35, just looked great in all the drills. It was a great corner class. They invited 59 corners all in all, James. And I think maybe slightly over half of them. So probably around 30 to 32 of those corners are going to contribute. And of those, half of them are going to be starters, if not immediately, then in the first year or two, or maybe 3 years of their careers. So it's a very, very deep corner class. But Deonte Banks definitely helped himself. I think he was seen as a guy on that, second, third round range. I think he's pushed himself into that bubble between first and second round.
And now, rumor has it that the Panthers traded all those up to get CJ Stroud.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on CJ?
Well, he is a he's a sniper, man. He is a ball placement specialist. He may not be the biggest, strongest, or the fastest, but he has, strong enough arm. They're stronger arms, but his is strong. The huge cannon guys like Levis and, Richardson, he's not quite in that category, but he has a strong enough arm. Incredibly accurate. Can throw with touch, can layer the ball, can, get it over linebackers and drop it in front of the safety. Puts the ball right where it needs to be. He can put the ball on a guy's fingertips over and over and over. And you could see how easy it was for him, that natural ball placement. He's not a guy that has to work on it. He's not having to aim it or anything. No, he just has that great hand-eye, that proprioceptive sense, that great hand, and that great sense of time and space, that kinesthetic sense of where the ball needs to be placed and how to place it there. Worst case scenario, he's going to be, a middle of the pack quarterback with great ball placement. But best case scenario, he could be great.
The Colts are picking at number 4.
My sense is they end up with Will Levis. I think that's what's going to happen.
You think he's going to be the number 2 quarterback taken in the draft?
Well, I mean, I still think the Texans are taking Bryce Young, so no, that make him the 3rd quarterback.
Okay, all right. So you think the Texans are taking Bryce Young?
Yes.
The Panthers are taking C.J. Stroud.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And where does that leave the Raiders?
I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Where does that leave the Raiders?
Probably looking at Anthony Richardson, unless they decide to kick the can down the road for a year.
Okay.
And they may have competition for him. Watch out for maybe at least 1 or 2 other teams that at least consider moving up to snatch Richardson away from them.
Let's see. You covered. What about some of the other DBs?
I mean, I love Sidney Brown. I have first of all, he looks like Greek statuary, right? His skin appears to be just painted over his muscles, which are made of adamantium. I mean, he is rocked up. But he's not just, like this incredible bodybuilder. He's a great natural athlete, and he has a really high football IQ. And playing for Lovie Smith for a couple of years certainly helped him. And then he finished his career playing for Ryan. I'm blanking on his last name. Who just got hired as a. It'll come back to me, but he's. It's killing me. But he's played for really smart people, and he's been coached extremely well. And he had an incredible combine performance on top of everything else. So he's the complete package, quite frankly, at the position. He can play strong. He can play free. He can cover the slot. He's 22 years old, so he's not an old prospect. He is a Canadian kid. He grew up playing a bunch of different sports. He's even figure skated, James. Did you know that? Know that? He's even figure skated. Now, he didn't do it a lot. I think it was just about 2 years, like ages 9 and 10 or something like that. But he is an amazing all-around athlete. 4.47 40, came in at, I think 5'10" and change, 211 pounds. Just killed it, right? I mean, he did everything. He did everything at a super high level. And there's still more left in the tank, right? Because he's one of those guys that, came to football later. He's 10-10 broad jump, 40.5-inch vertical. He just did everything. And even with the extra year of COVID eligibility, still 22 years old. So that's the other thing. He's not as old as like these guys who took that extra year. Last year he had 59 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, a sack, forced fumble, 13 pass breakups, 6 interceptions, and he scored 2 touchdowns on defense. He's a playmaker, and he's going to continue to be a playmaker. He also knocked out 23 bench reps, which would be better than several of the defensive end prospects this year.
And what about a running back?
Let me see. To pick just one.
You can go a couple if you want.
Okay, so I'm a big
top 3.
I'll give you my top 3. Okay, so I mean everyone's on Bijan Robinson, so I won't so much talk about him, but he's universally everybody's running back 1, and for good reason. I'm a big Tajay Spears guy. I think Tajay Spears is enormously underrated, and I think he's going to go somewhere in the 3 to 4 round range, and I think he's going to eventually push his way into being an NFL starter, perhaps sooner rather than later. And then let's see. who else do I really like in this class? Oh, well, Chase Brown, right? The other Brown brother, the twin brother of the aforementioned Sidney Brown, is another guy. He came in a little bit shorter than his brother, but I think actually maybe a pound or two heavier. I think he's 5'9 3/4, and his brother's like 5'10 and a quarter or something, or 5'10 and a half. But just a terrific athlete, and got a little bit of like Ray Rice to him. And also, I'll just have to mention by law the two Blazers, so three blazing fast guys. Devin Chain is sort of a Eric Metcalf type, 188-pound Texas A&M guy. Jahmyr Gibbs, who's more of a full-size running back, right around 200, came in at 199, but he's going to play in the 200s. He's going to, be a guy that is that change of pace back at the next level. The Georgia Tech transfer who finished up his career at Alabama ran 4.36, and then Keaton Mitchell. If you're looking for a guy, a sleeper, a guy that people aren't talking enough about, watch out for Keaton Mitchell and Deneric Prince. Deneric Prince is from Tulsa. Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina. East Carolina running backs can run, right? CJ2K, same school as Chris Johnson, who's been sort of mentoring him through the process. But Mitchell ran 4.38. He's a smaller back. He's going to play in the 180s as well, but tougher than you might expect for a small running back. Can catch the ball a little bit. That's a team that needs a speed back. I could see them, going after Keaton Mitchell. And Keaton Mitchell had a really good all-around combine workout as well. And he's one of the guys I was sort of rooting for. I wrote an article about the guys I thought would have the fastest times. And he was one of the guys I mentioned. And he ended up, not the fastest, but in the top 10. And he's, like I said, he's not big enough to be like a full-time, all-the-time guy, but he's going to definitely be a part of somebody's rotation in their running back rotation. He's, like I said, small, but a little more powerful than people give him credit for. Probably, I think he's 179, played at about 181, so it's not like he cut a lot of weight, just cut a couple of pounds to run. He's already super fast, but yeah, I mean, I think they, gave him an official 4.37, and he's every bit of that. I mean, it shows up on tape also when you watch him play.
Of course, it's bracket. We're starting March Madness.
Yep.
Most people start the bracket started this evening, today, as a matter of fact.
Play-in game.
So, do you have a favorite or a Cinderella?
Well, I have both a favorite and a Cinderella. I mean, Houston obviously is a favorite. To me, the favorite. Kansas sort of deserves to be mentioned because they deserve to be mentioned every year. They're Kansas. They're one of the great blue bloods. But talking about, like, okay, in your neck of the woods, right? San Diego State University, there's a what's the word I'm looking for? Dark horse. Xavier, right? The Musketeers, for the first time since the Byron Larkin days. Remember those days? Remember when the Larkin family, the Mike Larkin, Barry Larkin, Byron Larkin. What was the other? There was one other one. Larkin brothers. But remember all those? The Larkin brothers from Saint what high school in Cincinnati? Saint something high school. One of those big Catholic high schools in Cincinnati. Oh, it almost came back to me. Oh, well, whatever. But Bishop something maybe. But what, Malloy? Is it Bishop Malloy? I can't remember which high school it is. But they're all from the same powerhouse high school in Cincinnati. One went to Notre Dame, one went to Michigan, and one went to Xavier. And I don't know why Byron Larkin didn't make it in the NBA. He was terrific in college. But yeah, for the first time since the Byron Larkin days, the Musketeers of Xavier are truly dangerous.
Okay. Jeffrey will be on with us next week to kind of recap a little bit of North Carolina not making the NIT or the NCAA.
They made the NIT. They just turned it down.
Well, and also ran. I mean, but
Moeller. Sorry, Moeller High School. Sorry, it came back to me. Bishop Moeller High School. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he was and Larkin, I think he chose the wrong sport. He was an All-American in football. He liked basketball better. I think he would have been a terrific football player. But sorry, go ahead.
No. As you say, I mean, it's good to see March Madness. Pretty soon, we'll be down watching baseball. There's been a few moves made in that. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. Bill, why don't you give us your final thoughts, man? What it was like going to the combine? Was this your first year at the combine?
Nope. But it's my first year since before the pandemic.
Okay.
So my first year at the combine was the year that Kiki Alonso was there, Teron Armstead. The quarterbacks included, was it Ethan Manuel? Who else was there that year? Who else I talked to? Oh, Kenny Stills. Kenny Stills was there the first year I was at the combine. So yeah, it's not my first year, but my first year in a while though. And I mean, it's a great experience. It's really one of the things that I would recommend to everyone, right? If you're a person that really loves the game, particularly the business side of the game, because that's the other fun thing. In addition to all the stuff with players, I mean, it's like a convention. All the coaches, all the GMs, all the front office people, all the agents are all there. And there's lots of little clandestine huddling ups of people, conspiring to do God knows what that goes on constantly. I did a little bit of ear hustling, heard a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So it's always fun to catch scuttlebutt and rumor and innuendo when you're at the combine. But it is a terrific experience. I highly recommend it. If you get the chance to go.
Hey, man. Yes, there are certain, I'm sure on a lot of people's list that's part of their bucket list to make it to a combine. So,
Yep. And if you get media credentials. It's a great way to get the good stuff.
Even if you have to go to Indianapolis.
Yes, even if. But yeah, there's the credential. That's my credentials from the combine.
Okay. Now, do they handle those like they handle boxing conventions? They you apply and then they let you know whether or not.
So you go to NFL Media. NFL Communications, and there's a application process. You submit a picture of yourself, a little like resume, the organization that you're representing, so they get an idea of what it is you do and why you're there. And they either say yay or nay. So there have been years where I give them the exact same information, they say no. And the next year, the exact same information, they say yes. I'm not sure exactly why that is, James. But I apply yearly, and some years it's yes, some years it's no. So I would say probably 10 or 11 years. Let me see. I've applied and I've gotten approved 3 times out of those 10 or 11 years. So, better than some, not as good as others. Now, if I work for like Sports Illustrated or ESPN, I'm sure I get approved every year.
Yeah.
But I'm working for, smaller organizations. And I guess it just comes down to wherever their cutoff is. We've given out X number and we're stopping at this. So after all the big people get it, they go down their list, I guess, of all the little people. And I don't know how they arrange the little people part of the list, but I've made it. I made the cut a few times, but not others.
Yeah. Those of us that have applied for boxing credentials know exactly what you're talking about. It seems like there's no rhyme or reason. But, I guess maybe if they don't have, a certain amount of the big boys, as you say, apply, then you get the trickle down theory, as you do in economics, and we saw how that works. So, but anyway, hey man, it was glad to get a few minutes to talk with you.
Yes.
Have you heard anything about Demetrius?
I mean, nothing since the last thing that I got via email. My guess is that they are dealing with something that popped up.
Yeah,
I don't know anything more than that.
well,
Yeah, so it was 10 years ago. Was the first time I got credential was 2013. So 3 times in 10 years they've said yes.
Hey, well,
Batting 300.
In baseball, that'll get you $1 million bonus.
There you go.
All right, man. You have a good one. I'll talk to you next week.
Take care. You have a good night.
All right. Oh man, look, we got a little bonus coverage from Bill talking about the combine, so that's always good. Kind of miss having Bill and his expertise, especially when it comes to pronouncing names. Of course, you know that I don't know how many names we fumbled over in the last month since you've been gone.
Well, if you send me the names ahead of time, I'll send you back pronunciations. You can do that even if I'm not there. Just email me names that you think might cause you trouble.
All right, man. You have a good night. Will you be around Monday?
That's a definite maybe. Oh, right. We didn't have a show last Monday, right?
No.
Okay. So yeah, I should be able to. I don't think I have any other commitments.
I've taken the last 2 Mondays off. I've been trying to get some of the positive things, like some people from that Boys of the North documentary, some of the boxers that I know out of Minneapolis, as well as some people from St. Paul, and put forth a positive program showing some of the things that they are trying to work with the youth. So if you get a chance, you stop by. Of course, I'll always send you the material. So you have a great night, and hope to talk to you next week.
Indeed, we shall.
All right.
You have a good night.
Yeah. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next week.